I almost turned the documentary off around the 30-minute mark because I saw
Yeah.
that he got hurt.
People that are not fans or don't know the wrestling world, it's not fake, it's fixed. Big difference. A lot of the wrestlers say this. They're basically glorified stuntmen. I take my daughter to wrestling shows, once a month when they're in town. Stuff happens, all it takes is literally half a second to slip. You got a broken ankle. You land on your head wrong. Things have happened in the pro wrestling world, and people don't associate that because of the F word. You know what I mean? That's what that wrestlers call fake, the F word. It's that one word you don't say because people don't realize it. You're on the road however many days a year. So you're dealing with, that stuff away from your families. You are getting slammed on a ring, which is wood with a little bit of a mat on top of it. And you have that little bit of a spring underneath it to shock some of it. But you're still getting slammed. You're getting chopped. You're getting whatever done to you, and you saw in the documentary, David, he didn't hold back. He's jumping off the top rope into the ring, out of the ring. If those guys did not catch him safely, he could have been seriously injured, more so than what we saw in the documentary. And like I said, that's the main reason I told you offline is I wanted you to watch it. Is whether you're a wrestling fan or not, I think you would grow to appreciate what they do to their bodies for the entertainment of so many people, and you would grow to respect David as a person because, like I said, by Scream 5, he's not Dewey, he's David, because he goes through so many trials and tribulations that we've seen stuff that's brought up, whether it's his battle with sobriety, his battle with anxiety, the scene where he's in the hospital getting the drugs. You know what I mean? He's hooked up to all these machines, and he's, lack of a better term, he's doped out of his mind, and he's got his wife and the doctor there, and it's a hard watch. You feel for this guy, you realize, and then I think that's what he put into his Scream 5 performance because you buy it 100%. He is this broken man. The documentary ends on a happy note, but David Arquette, I think this documentary is over the span of maybe
Three
a
years.
year, 3 years. Okay,
Yeah.
up until the end, we have Broken David. Then we have this rebirth, and then we get Broken David again until the very end. And I think that is how he is portrayed in Scream 5. In 2000, there was a movie called Ready to Rumble, and it's about two wrestling fans. It's Scott Conn and David Arquette, and they are WCW fans. So it's done in conjunction with WCW. They have all their wrestlers there, blah, 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 to promote it. And it made sense. They had David Arquette show up. He played himself, but he got involved in a storyline with the top villains and this and that. And he accidentally won the world title. It's just a promotion ploy. If you look at it as a business standpoint, it makes sense. It backfired. Fans didn't like it. And it wasn't David's fault. He didn't want to do it.
He reluctantly went along with it.
The horror community or horror fans, we're kind of a niche group. You know what I mean? It's not for everybody. The hardcore ones are very hardcore, and some of the fans just they shit on him when they realize he wasn't writing that story. You know what I mean? He was hired to do a job. He did his job and then he left. And people crapped on him so much, and you can tell in the documentary that he took it personally. Like I don't know how far you watched during the credits, but there was a wrestler who was talking about how every penny that David made from his wrestling appearance that he donated to his family. The wrestler's name was Brian Pillman Jr. His father was a wrestler named Brian Pillman who died of a heart attack in '97 in the prime of his career. Like it was like the day before a wrestling event, he was found deceased in his hotel room, and then there was the Owen Hart situation. Owen Hart was doing a stunt and he fell from the rafters during a pay-per-view. Brian Pillman Jr. said every penny that David made, he gave to the Pillman family and the Hart family. David made zero when it came to his wrestling career.
For anyone that has loved him because of Scream,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they should watch this because he is a really sensitive person. And
Yes.
this like he is that Dewey character. You see, okay, taking Dewey from the first one, you see this character that just wants to be taken seriously. He means well. He's trying to uphold the law and protect. And is he very good at it? No. Just like you look at David Arquette in real life at the start of the documentary, is he really that good at it? No. Like in that backyard fight, he
Hmm.
got hurt.
They took advantage of him. That part pissed me off because again, the people in the backyard federation, they're just fans that don't know any better. They're schmucks from in the middle of nowhere doing their own backyard federation in front of 20 people. When it comes to wrestling, if you ever watch when they punch, a lot of wrestlers stomp the ground when they punch. So they know
Yes.
when to not hit, not make contact. This fucker punched him square in the jaw. Like the
Yeah, I
first
didn't
thing, the
like
bell
that.
rang, he punched him square in the jaw, and David falls, and you see how shocked David looks. But he's still doing his job. And you just see that they're chopping him extra hard. They bring in light tubes just to do it, just to
They
be
just wanted
mean.
to teach him a lesson, I think. And that's like, really? That's the kind of
Yeah.
humans you are? So I don't know. That really
and
upset
and
me.
what pissed me off too is it's part of the documentary. They were talking afterwards when David's in the bathroom and he's cleaning himself up, and then we're back to the, I'm going to say, promoter with air quotes. It's just some 350 pushing 400-pound guy talking about how we've been doing this for years. No, you haven't. Stop. It's like it's like someone that size telling someone to lose weight. You know what I mean? You don't know what you're doing. And then he's laughing at the fact that David made no money. You know what I mean? Oh, and he's not getting paid. Wow, thanks, Dick. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's good for the documentary because it adds the sympathy. But again, it just made me mad with how some of these people treated him. When you see that and you learn that he's always loved wrestling, because he says he loved the theatrics. He comes from his grandfather was an actor. His dad, his whole freaking family are actors. You know what I mean? He loves the theatrics. That's why when he comes out and he does his character, he's the magic man. He wants people to have fun. You know what I mean? For Christ's sake, he's got Bozo the Clown tattooed on his arm, and he owns the Bozo Show because he loves theater. He loves making kids happy, and just seeing him just being taken advantage of and abused. There's no other way to say it. He was abused during that wrestling event. It's sickened me.
Yeah, and one could say with the Dewey, people not so much physically, but verbally just kind
Yeah,
of being mean to him all the time. Even his sister didn't respect him
their
in the
sisters and
movie.
brothers picking on each other is one
Right.
thing, but the fact that she does it in front of his coworkers.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 1 through 4 had good balance with his relationship with Gail. The
Yes,
Dewey Gale relationship is what made me like his character so much. Was he my favorite character? No, but I just loved the little bickering that they did between the two of them because so the first one, and this is in real life, Courtney even said this on the documentary.
it was
First
nice to see her.
one,
It was nice to see her in the documentary.
yes. And she even said, in we met on Scream, we hated each other on Scream 2, we got married on Scream 3, we were divorced by Scream 4.
Hmm.
And that's a parallel because that was their real life, and that's kind of
Yep.
what was written into the movies as well. Going back to Avengers Endgame, how Thor had gained weight, so many people were very upset. I can't believe you showed Thor looking like that. But this is real life. He was depressed, and they were like, okay, what happens when people are depressed? They eat their feelings and they gain weight, right?
He was the best character, and it's not because Chris Hemsworth is just like one of the funniest guys out there.
Yeah.
It was realistic. He is the cause of, lack of a better term, he is the cause of why half the world disappeared. He struck Thanos, and Thanos says, next time go for the head. Does his snap. So he's got all that, all of his friends, all of his
Yeah.
family, everybody, or, half and half, whatever, are gone because he made one mistake. Think about that. Whether he's a god or not, he's still got human qualities. Whether he's a god or not, he's got all that on his shoulders. If he's not going to drink himself to death, he's going to eat himself to death. And yes, Chris Hemsworth made it a comedic role. But again, when they're doing the time travel, when he meets his mom and breaks down because she's already gone, she's already dead, that's the stuff you need for a tragic character. And
Yeah.
Dewey is a tragic character. He's never getting any respect. The marriage failed. Thank goodness they didn't have any children. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he's still there to protect her. He's still pining over her. He doesn't have to watch her stupid morning show every day, but
And
he
that's real
does.
life. That's how people are in real life. They don't always,
Exactly.
it's not wrapped up into a, perfect package with a bow on top. People don't get over relationships that easy. And so they gave his character so much depth in the fifth one.
Hmm.
I'm with you on that. I feel like one through four were kind of surface for Dewey.
You can see a little bit of I mean, because the first one he's in over his head with Gail. She's very assertive. It's my way or the highway thing, and she's showing him a little interest. And at first, she doesn't care. She just wants to get into the house. I'm sure Dewey doesn't have a lot of experience with women. For all we know, Gail could be the first one that's ever given him attention. You know what I mean? For all we know, he's wrapped around her finger. He's like, wow, this really attractive woman wants to hang out with me. He doesn't realize her intentions. By the second one, they still they're kind of hating each other, but then they legit fall for each other. They really do. By the third one, they've had that breakup, before they get engaged at the end, and he's got a lack of a better term, he's got a side chick to make her jealous. It happens in real life. Males, females, when they break up, they might get a rebound person, just to make their ex jealous. And that's what he does with Parker Posey. You know what I mean? I personally think in Scream 3, there really is no romance. He's doing it just to make Gail mad. And then by the fifth one, he's down in the dumps. But the little things that they give him, you have to pay attention. He's got Tatum's urn on his mantle. You know what I mean? First time we've ever heard her mentioned, in my opinion. I don't think she's mentioned in any of the sequels. First time we see a reference to her is over the mantle. Didn't have to do that, but that was something that adds to his character. He couldn't protect Tatum. He's going to do his damnedest to protect Gail and the kids, or preteens, early teens, whatever you want to say, the characters in the Scream movie. So he's trying to get that redemption arc, and he doesn't survive, but I think he gets it. And that, in my opinion, in a world that, even though Scream is based in reality, they're goofy movies. People, you gotta accept it. They're goofy movies. They really are. Look at the characters. Look at the performances. They are goofy movies. But Dewey has this arc where he goes from Keystone Cops to, like I said, to Superman, to whatever cop you want to throw out in TV or movies. He gets that hero moment that he desperately needed. David just brung it in that movie. Maybe there's a couple lines like when Randy's niece is doing the whole requel speech. You know what I mean? That's the only time I think he says something funny where he's like, it's something like, well, maybe I shouldn't have decided to help you, or something like that, in that aspect. The rest of it, he's 100% serious, and I loved it.
I couldn't have been happier with the fifth installment because it really was a love letter to the first Scream.
Hmm.
And as much as I love that movie, number five made everyone really excited again about
Yeah,
the franchise.
it needed that adrenaline shot, because whether you love the franchise and you don't want to, crap on it, or point out the flaws, in my opinion, after Scream 2, it dropped in quality. When Jay and Silent Bob show up as themselves on the set of Miramax, come on. Carrie Fisher pretending, acting like she's just someone who looks like Carrie Fisher. Come on, guys. And then, we've had our discussions about the reasoning for Roman doing what he did and what it does to the Maureen character. The quality dropped. And then when it comes to Scream 4, because with Scream 3, the majority don't like it. The majority, in my opinion, at least the circles I'm in. Scream 4, no one loves or hates it. They just don't talk about it. There's a lot of good in 5 that I think, because of what happens to the Dewey character, people don't want to acknowledge, because they can't get over that, which, is good and bad. But, 5, I think, is underrated and underappreciated. And the main reason to watch it, it isn't for the new characters. It isn't for Jenna Ortega. It's for David Arquette. And again, that's I keep going back to the documentary. That's why I wanted you to watch it, because it's him. It's not Dewey.
When you rewatched it, did you say, "Yep, that's confirmed. I really do feel like this is a good blend of talking about both of these."
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Because they even show clips from his other movies. They show clips of Ready to Rumble and Eight Legged Freaks and oh god, C Spot Run and just the goofy stuff. Because they start out, he's with Patricia. Patricia Arquette. They're talking about how when he started, we come from a family, that wonderful family picture when they're all dressed like clowns, you know what I mean, with their dad. And they talk about, David started very serious. They showed a lot of clips of movies I've never heard of because I'm basically I didn't get introduced to David Arquette until Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know what I mean? That's where he met Luke Perry and they became friends. And it was nice seeing Luke in the documentary. But they showed all these clips of dramatic roles, but then he said once he got hired for Scream, he got typecast to being the goofy guy, and he can't get past it. And then it cuts immediately to him. Excuse me. It cuts immediately to him saying he's been auditioning for 10 years and he hasn't gotten a single role.
That was
That's
heartbreaking. I didn't
that
know that.
I know because we as horror fans or just movie fans in general, we're focused on him as Dewey. That's we think he's got this. He's five successful movies. He's an Arquette. He was married to Courtney Cox. They showed how he was on the cover of Vanity Fair with all the up and comers like Will Smith and this and that. You think he's got a free ride? No acting in 10 years. You don't realize that. And it was sad that drive to this audition or the drive to I think he was trying to get himself on a wrestling convention. It's heartbreaking seeing it. It's not all rainbows and sunshine for actors just because they come from a famous family or they've had a few very successful movies.
You know how the kids today they say cringe? Like
Yeah.
I was cringing for him in that moment. I wanted to give him a hug.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I have seen that at Scarefest weekend where someone is at their table and they don't have but maybe one or two trickling over to their table. You feel for them because they've taken the time to travel to this convention
Hmm.
and there were it showed him sitting at his table. No one was at his table because people weren't respecting him because of the whole thing that happened in 2000. People were
And
talking crap even there at the convention.
you can read his body language. He's thinking, "Why am I here?" type of thing. And then you cut to the two other, I'm going to say air quotes, wrestlers. You know,
I don't even
he's
know who
making
they are.
well, that's my point. He made a mockery of this. No one knows who you are, dude. You said you've been doing this and going up and down the road for however many years. I don't know who you are.
Right.
I'm okay when it comes to knowing who indie wrestlers are. I don't know who you are. You're just some, schlub to me. And then what happens? David, gets no one to sign his autographs. He still goes through that one asshole who was just trash talking to him. He buys some merchandise from
I've met him once at Scarefest.
him.
It was back in 23, and I had him sign my screen poster. And of course, I had to ask him, out of all the ones that you've been in, what was your favorite? And he said, I have to say the original.
When you're an actor, you have like wrestling, you have to take a job. Did Donald Pleasance really need to be in six fucking Halloween movies? No, or five because of Halloween 3, whatever. Did he? No. He's an actor. A job is a job. You do it for the money, but you also do it for the love of doing it. David is a performer. He loves to perform. He did it to perform. He was somewhat successful, growing up. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He did. I'm probably the only one that remembers the Outsiders television show that he was on. But Scream, I don't want to say it made him, but it introduced him to a generation of people that knew who David Arquette was. He's not Luke Perry's buddy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's Dewey Riley. We know who David Arquette is now. You know what I mean? So some people looked forward to the next David Arquette movie. People like him as the goofball. I love Eight Legged Freaks. You know what I mean? But I'm also a fan of the Big Bug movies from the 50s. Ready to Rumble and C Spot Run. That's kind of pushing it. But there are people that Pauly Shore had a career being the goofball. It's no different. It's an acquired taste. Like I said, it's a niche. And he had to take the roles, whether he liked them or not. It's like the actor starting out in a horror movie. Jennifer Aniston could give two shits that she was in Leprechaun. You know what I mean? She had to take the role. Kevin Bacon didn't think twice about being in Friday the 13th. He was starting out. You got to start somewhere. And that's what David, I think, what David was doing. This was a big role. It had a big name horror movie director, so it had some clout to it. It's the guy who made A Nightmare on Elm Street, and so he took a chance, and it gave a breath of fresh air to his career.
Back in 2023 when I met him at Scarefest, my whole goal was to get that Scream poster signed.
Mm-hmm.
Having now seen the documentary, it's like I've seen this whole other side of David Arquette, and I do have an immense respect for him, and seeing
Yep.
him have such a sadness about I really want to prove myself. And then you see him kind of go through this backyard match that didn't go well. And he just felt more inspired. Okay, well then how do I train?
Mm-hmm.
How do I change my physique? Totally transformed himself, dropped, I think, 50 pounds, 40 or
Mm-hmm.
50 pounds, transformed his body, got in shape so that he could be in the ring and throw himself around and then proves that he can get respect from everyone, which we all know you don't need to have the approval from others. I get that.
Right.
But
You
I
still
could
want
see
it.
how,
He's
right, and I could see how important that was to him in the documentary. So seeing him get that was so inspiring.
one of the best parts of the documentary is when he's in Mexico. They have subtitles of the luchadors, is what they're called. The masked wrestlers are speaking in Spanish, and they're like, "I thought you said this. This white boy was cool and stuff like that." And they humble him. He has to do wrestling in the streets that they do during traffic, and then he has to go from car to car begging for change. It's like the guy at the airport playing the violin. You throw the change in the hat. That's what he was doing the first time he was going up and down the traffic. No one gave him a penny. They forced him to do it again, and he's climbing up a ladder. He's on a ladder in traffic. This is David Arquette, and he's leaping onto a guy. It's concrete. The guy doesn't. We don't know if he's going to catch David or not. And you see how happy the luchadors are, and he's getting money. You know what I mean, from the people in the crowd. And then when he's at the event, and when it comes to Mexican wrestling and Mexican culture, the mask is an important thing because to them it's like being a superhero in front of the kids. So they gave him his own mask to come out with. I had a big shit eating grin on my face because he's happy. He understands the culture, so he knows it was a big deal. And he has a great match, because they show the training. He can't get the moves right. He finally does. It might be a small place in a basement, but there's probably 50 people there. They're cheering their asses off for him. They're saying, if the dude in the pink mask comes back, I'll buy tickets and stuff like that. Afterwards, when they're cleaning up, there's a scene where the camera's behind his two partners and they take their mask off. That's a big deal in Mexican wrestling culture. You're not supposed to show your face. Like it's a big deal. It really
I was
is.
going to ask you about that because I really didn't know the history of it.
A lot of Mexican wrestlers, when they would go out for groceries, and stuff like that, or go out to the bar afterwards, they keep the mask on. And because you see them without the mask, it's like Superman without his cape. Seeing a person under the mask is a big deal, and the fact that they were showing some dude from Hollywood coming into our world their face, and you see how David, how shocked he is. It's a big deal. So that's a big piece of acceptance.
And the fact that one of them gave his mask and signed,
Yes.
you could see that he was getting kind of choked up at that point.
He went to his buddy that was with them, and the buddy was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." But David had a hard time speaking, and it's kind of like when a kid's he's excited, but he's kind of embarrassed. He's like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool," and he turns away from the camera. It's sweet. David is a big kid. You've seen all the stuff he has at his house. He lives at a circus. He's a big kid. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of the documentary was tough, and you felt for him. But when he does get those moments, you can't help but smile and be happy for him because you want him to be accepted. Like Dewey. Dewey wanted to be accepted. And it took 5 fucking movies for it to happen.
I sent you a message saying, I don't know, Eric, this is making me sad.
Yeah. I,
And you're
I
like, keep going, keep
yeah.
watching it because
And
it's gonna
I told you just wait. You'll be smiling by the end of it. And it ends with him. Like there's this one of his favorite wrestlers growing up was Macho Man Randy Savage. Macho Man had his wife, Miss Elizabeth. You know, she was the first lady of wrestling. She was classy before they were all just, flashing their chest and butts and everybody. She was in evening gown. She had the long, gloves up to the elbows. There's a reason why she was called Miss Elizabeth. You know what I mean? And David even says, I've been in love with her since I was a kid. My wife kind of looks like her. And it was great in that final match. I guess we see what we're building up to. He's still nervous. He can't put the tape on his wrist right. You know what I mean? He can't do it because after the death match he went back to drinking. Or if not drinking, it's just he couldn't control the nerves. And when his wife walks in this beautiful red evening gown, she's got the gloves, his eyes just light up.
Now, I wanted to
He
ask you, was that a surprise?
I don't.
You think you
I think she was going to be in the crowd because we see her and his daughter and her stepdaughter. Coco, who was with he had with Courtney Cox. At first, they're like, "Don't do this," but you see them in the crowd. They're cheering and they're happy. And then I don't remember David's wife's name, but she says my favorite part was when Coco was flipping them off. Because she was so getting into it. I don't know if it was a surprise. I think his wife was going to be there in the crowd, but I think she surprised him being dressed as Miss Elizabeth.
That's the
And
part, Eric, that made me cry because it just felt like it's a documentary, but it feels like a movie, a familiar movie that you've seen where someone is just down on their luck and
mm-hmm,
you see them go through peaks and valleys of their life and then end on a high note at the end.
mm-hmm,
And just seeing too, like he had people that are in his life, like his wife was like, oh, he's being crazy again. He thinks he can do
yep,
this. So even his wife was kind of saying, really? Come on, David. And then to
yeah.
see her at the end cheering him on, it's the
She
same
accepted it.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes, it's the same thing in the Dewey character because we're like, ah, come on, like
yeah,
this basically this Barney Fife and oh,
mm-hmm,
I feel bad for Barney Fife. And then at the end, you see him and how his character has grown into five,
yeah.
and you're just like, yay, David
It
Arquette as Dewey.
to me, it's the kid became a man. You know what I mean? When you're a kid, you don't give two shits. You're goofy. You're stupid. You're doing this. You're doing that. Okay, time to tighten the belt, put on the bootstraps. By five, he was the man. It's a brutal death. There's no doggy doors in this fucking death. You know what I mean? But if you can get past that and then look at it with new eyes and realize that he was the man and he went down swinging. But what's great about this documentary is as he's going up, he has that actual death match, not a backyard one, the one that he's actually in the wrestling ring with Nick Gage, and that is an actual death match federation. It really is. And I remember when it was being promoted, David Arquette was a fill-in. Nick Gage's original opponent couldn't make it or something like that. David Arquette was filled in.
I was sitting here watching, going, who the hell takes a light and smashes it against someone? What are you even thinking in the first place?
It's not for everybody. It is dangerous, but it also
Scary.
helps. It can be scary. You know what I mean? It really can be. And that's what happened in that match. It's just, David's going through tables. He's hitting Nick Gage with the chair. And then Nick Gage leaves and comes back with bundles of light tubes. And David's taking them. And I'll say it, Nick Gage is not a good person, like in and out of the ring. Because there is a documentary called Dark Side of the Ring where they go into the behind the scenes stuff. And the night before, David and Nick sat down for dinner, to go over, what's going to happen. And David paid for everything because he's David, and he says, do what you want. He says, just don't mess up my face. I'm an actor. Well, what did we see? David getting hit in the head with light tubes. They didn't show it, but the scene where David's on the ropes and his mouth is open and Nick has something in his mouth. That's a pizza cutter.
I couldn't
Yeah,
decipher what it was.
yeah, I've seen the whole match. It's a pizza cutter. He usually does it on the guy's forehead. They had a light tube, and then Nick fell backwards, and you immediately saw that switch get flipped on David. He went from, hey, this is David getting beat up, to he turned on Nick, and you saw him grab Nick, hold his neck, and he's holding him down. And that's when he left the ring because the light tube broke, and he got cut in the neck. So he's thinking of leaving the match, but again, David, respecting the business, goes back for another couple minutes. It's just a couple minutes. He throws some light tubes at Nick. Nick slams him, pins him, and David, instead of, it's called selling, instead of, laying there beat up for a couple minutes while Nick gets to go cheer the crowd, David immediately gets up, and you saw him leave. And you saw in the parking lot, that's Luke Perry putting the towels around David's neck. They're trying to bang to get into the emergency room. And there is that one scene, again, it's kind of a trigger warning or whatever, where he's in the hospital and they take the towel off David's neck and you see the little blood spurt.
The whole time, he knows he's bleeding. He doesn't know where he's bleeding from though. He gets back in the ring, he could have died. He doesn't know
Yeah.
how excessive it is at that point.
Again, it's my respect grows for him as a wrestling fan because this is the dork who ruined wrestling in 2000. Did he really have to finish the match? No, he could have said, "Fuck it, I'm going home. I don't have to do this." Wrestling is one thing. Deathmatch wrestling, it's obviously it's more dangerous with the weapons and stuff. But David Arquette didn't have to do that shit. But then he has that match with the wrestler in the build up, and it's everywhere. He's on the graphic on the outside of the building, and then his wife comes in, and I don't know what her name is, but instead of just his wife's name, it's Miss, and
Christina, I
then
think her name
okay,
was.
yeah, Miss Christina, like Miss
Yes.
Elizabeth, and then at the very end you see there every year it just literally just came out. There's a magazine that's called Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It's been around for decades, like 70s or whatever. And every year they have what is called the PWI 500. They rank
Okay.
the top 500 wrestlers in the world. And you saw that little graphic at the end. They didn't say what number, but they said David was ranked in it. You know what I mean? And then you see David with a wrestler with bushy hair. You know what I mean? And he's talking to him at the end. That's Luke Perry's son. Luke Perry's son is a wrestler. So he's a big name now in wrestling, or a bigger name, I guess you would say. So it was cool seeing, because Luke Perry was a big wrestling fan. He would always be up in the balcony, watching his son. So not to take attention away from his kid, but it was cool seeing now because they mentioned, David's depression, the death match. They mentioned Luke Perry passing away during the
Right.
documentary,
I didn't even
and
know
they
those two were friends.
yeah
So
they
this
they've been
shows.
yeah they've been friends since Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The Christy Swanson movie. They acted together. They were buddies on that. And it's just cool seeing again, David's happy, and it ends with him with Luke Perry's son Jack. So it's just kind of a cool book end. And then it's very sweet that they dedicated the documentary to Luke.
If you're someone who's dealt with depression,
Mm-hmm.
watch this.
And it's also a documentary where you're just like, just take that chance. Rejection sucks. David got rejected for 10 years. You know what I mean? But that one time he took that one other time he took a chance and he did it. And it's great because if you remember, there's a scene where he's going to a wrestling convention. And the nasty boy, Brian Knobs, he's like, I don't know. I'm just doing it for business. I don't want you there. People won't go. And then there's a scuffle. What happened was Brian's tag team partner, Jerry, came in. He's like, basically, he was saying, get the fuck out of here. You don't see it on camera. You see there's some scuffle. And because some guys did take it personal, some actual wrestlers, because like he said, these guys have, their knees are gone by the time they're 40 years old
And I'm
or
sorry,
worse.
but that seemed like a lot of gatekeeping to me in that.
Oh, it was. It was. It was.
And
It
I'm just
was.
like, really, you don't own wrestling. Some of the people
Yeah.
that were saying things, I'm just like, you don't own the wrestling federation.
Brian Knobs has not been relevant since maybe 1993. He's where, air quotes, he's where he is now, name wise, because he was best friends with Hulk Hogan. He sucks. Okay, I will say that Brian Knobs sucks. He's not talented. He's a disgusting human being. But this is business. Well, guess what? That same convention at the end of the movie, everyone's taking pictures because this is years later. He's invited back. Everyone wants to have their picture taken with David Arquette. You see, he's kind of tired. You know what I mean? But he stops, takes the picture. So again, that's another kind of cool redemption where he's kicked out of a bar because two fucking asshole wrestlers who haven't been big in 20 years doesn't want him to have anything to do with the business. And now he can't keep the fans away.
Well, and I've been big on saying this on episodes. I know you've heard me say this before, that if someone is well known for a movie and that's the reason why people are lining up, if you saw David's line at conventions now, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of all ages, because, and it is probably in big part because of Scream.
Sure.
But I do talk about a lot, like, hey, expand your horizons and look at some of their other work. And that's what I say about this documentary is that it opens a dialogue so that when you walk up to
Mm-hmm.
the table and you do get to meet David, it gives you something to talk about, whether it's, hey, I was really inspired by what you did, or hey, I have depression too. It made me feel not alone. It made me feel like, hey, there's other people out there. It just opens up such a good conversation to have with him that's not just, I loved you as Dewey, which we,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's what I call John Carpenter syndrome. He doesn't want to talk Halloween, guys. He did more. I guarantee you, if you brought up, like I made a joke, go to Zach Galligan and you said, I loved when you blew dust and stuff out of Bruce Campbell's ribs in Waxwork too. I guarantee you, to use a wrestling term, he'd pop for that. You know what I mean? He's like, wow, you're one of the two people that saw Waxwork too. I guarantee you, if you talked to David about the documentary or just wrestling in general, he'd probably talk your ear off. Or if you want to talk to him and tell him that you inspired me, I guarantee you he would take that to heart because he is such an emotional person and he's just such a good guy in general.
And there's a picture, and this is what I want to close on. There's a picture out there that it shows this at the end of the documentary where he's ripped, right? Doesn't have a shirt on,
Mm-hmm.
he's ripped and he's holding out the Scream mask. And I want to tell you what that means to me now. I saw it
Mm-hmm.
in 2023 on his table, but I had no interest in that at the time because I had this 12 by 18 Scream poster that he was going to be part of.
Mm-hmm.
And now I kind of want that 8 by 10, but here's
Mm-hmm.
why. And I could be wrong on this, but in the very first one, he's at the door and he's holding up this mask, right? And
Mm.
he has these boyish looks, as Dale said. Oh, do you work out? He says, well,
Yeah.
because of my boyish looks, I have to work out to be taken seriously. And then
Yeah.
you see him in this 8 by 10, just completely transformed, holding out this ghost face mask, like, look at me now.
The look on his face is a look of accomplishment. He's got his daughter Coco. I think she's like 13 or 14 or something at the time. He's got a little one, maybe 2, 3 years old. He's walking around in diapers still, and she's just like, "Dad, this is so stupid. This is dumb. Why are you doing this? You're embarrassing." And the little kid, yeah, do it, this and that. He's having fun. And by the end of it, Coco's the one yelling and screaming in the crowd, like you said. Her stepmoms. She says my favorite part was Coco flipping everybody off. Because David lost that match, but you know what? She was still getting into it, and that's what's different. You may hate it on TV, but here's a little plug: go look for a local wrestling show. You might. It's like me. I hate baseball games. I love going to them. They're fun. It's a different experience. My daughter, who I take to the local Fed every month, when we're available, she doesn't give two shits about wrestling. She knows who the Undertaker and John Cena is. That's it. She wouldn't care. I forced her to go to one. She's like, I don't want to go. This is stupid. As we were walking out, I can't wait to go to the next one.
That's
And
awesome.
and we have not missed one in our town. They do some in the city. I don't like going to the city, but we have not missed one in the town I live in now or the town next to us. We have not missed one in probably 2 years. What 13-year-old girl in 2025 who you can't get off their fucking phone or the internet or this and that, the iPad, wants to go to pro wrestling?
Well, and those of you that know that I watch horror with my granny who raised me on this,
Mm-hmm.
Granny watches wrestling every night.
That a girl. I love that woman.
Yeah, it's great.
I love that woman so much. That's awesome.
All right, guys. Well, this has been it. We could talk about him all night long, but we'll just say go see him if you get a chance, or even go and just watch him at a panel. He's just a lot of fun to listen to.
He's got some stories, man. He
That's
really
some
he's lived
story.
an amazing life.